Ladies and gentlemen, the Fantastic Four movie, Fantastic Four First Steps, has landed and it's made quite an impact. Now, I said from the beginning, I just need a great science fiction movie with comic book characters in it. And guess what? I got a little bit more than that. The sci-fi element exceeded my expectations. All right, especially the scene where the Fantastic Four is fleeing Ta-2, which is the name of Galactus' ship traditionally, and they're being chased by the Silver Surfer. That's probably my favorite sequence. From the reveal of Galactus meeting, let's go back further. From the time they launch into space, I'll just make it one big segment, one big chapter. From the time they launch into space until the time they land and arrive back on Earth, that's my favorite part of the movie. In that time, we see that this ship called Excelsior, which is probably a nod to Stan Lee's catchphrase, Excelsior. If you ever played Lego Marvels, whenever you rescue Stan Lee in every board, he always comes out and says Excelsior. That's one of Stan Lee's catchphrases. So there's no surprise that there's a nod to Stan and a nod to Jack Kirby. 828, that was Jack Kirby's birthday, August 28th. So this is Earth 828. So much love to Matt Shackman, Josh Friedman, even Jeff Kaplan and Ian Springer, the guys that wrote the screenplay. And there's one more person whose name I forget. Their name will be here. They wrote the screenplay. They showed love to Jack Kirby. They showed love to Stan Lee, and I appreciate you guys for it. So anyway, Excelsior is the way they travel in something called FTL, which reminds me of Battlestar Galactica, because I don't think they could say speed of light or light speed for some reason. I don't know. Or maybe that was just their creative choice to say FTL, faster than light. So when Excelsior goes to Ta-2, which is traditionally Galactus' ship, they go through a wormhole. That's how they travel faster than the speed of light. Okay, so it goes through a wormhole. It has an FTL drive. It's almost like the Jedi starfighters in the prequel trilogy. Like they would have a regular starfighter and they'll go into those hyperspace rings, and that's how they go fast. So I like that assessment. So it takes off traditionally like a regular space shuttle, with the, I don't know what those things are called, but usually the space shuttle used to be mounted onto a larger thing, and it helps them boost into the atmosphere. And then once it achieves altitude, it breaks off. I know you didn't ask for a space shuttle lesson or a science lesson, but that's kind of how they treat Excelsior. They treat science like it's a real thing in this movie, and I appreciate that. So Excelsior, it has those same sort of boosters, and then the boosters break off, and once it achieves atmosphere, it goes into the FTL drive, and then they go into light speed through a wormhole that it creates, which is great scientific stuff. So they arrive, and I'm talking about my favorite scene. This is a spoiler review, yes. They arrive at a planet where they track the Silver Surfer's energy signature. Okay, so they see this planet, and all of a sudden it just begins to twist from the inside out. And they're like, wait, the heat signature is coming from inside the planet. And then you see Galactus' ship emerge right out of the planet because he just destroyed the planet. And then when they get inside of Galactus' ship, you see it's grinding stuff up. It's almost like a foundry. You know what I mean? There's a lot of molten flow, molten lava looks like. So obviously this Galactus breaks the planet down, puts it into this lava, and then he ingests it through these big conduits on his back. All right, so it's different. I'm not mad at it. So we see Johnny Storm talking to the Silver Surfer. You still see the same regret in the Silver Surfer. She says, because she just enters their ship, she just phases through. She says, Galactus will see you now. Then she says, you should not have come here. And she leaves. So you still see that she's almost an unwilling herald of Galactus. All right, and we find out later in the movie that she sacrificed herself to save her daughter. That's why she became the Silver Surfer, the herald of Galactus, to protect Zenla, where she's from. Now, traditionally, that's Norrin Red, who gave himself for Shalabal, who was this Silver Surfer. On Zenla, I think it's the same planet, and Norrin Red became the Silver Surfer to save his world from Galactus. Now, so then we meet Galactus. Ralph Ineson. Now, if you've ever seen my videos, I always say, David Brent, please let me know where those comments go. Ralph Ineson was in The Office UK. He was Chris Finch. Yay! So, no, I'm playing. I'm going to say, I've had foresight. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, but Ralph Ineson, he does a fantastic job of making Galactus menacing. And guess what? I actually got a little glimpse into Galactus' backstory. I got a little depth on Galactus, which I did not expect. I just figured they'd treat him like this world-shattering entity, which he is. He's a force of nature. He's not a villain. So I see all these people saying, oh, Galactus was weak, weak AF, or Galactus can't fight. Galactus is just feeding on these worlds. He has no malice. He bears no malevolence towards them. And Galactus can even be, He can even feel pity for the people that he devours. I remember in the animated series, Ghost Rider gave him the penitent stare. And that's how they just subdued Galactus, because all the billions and trillions of lives that he's destroyed, he felt the pain of their deaths. So Galactus, he's a force of nature. He's not really a combatant, like take that, Galactus. Galactus ducking behind shit, buildings. Not that kind of entity. He's somebody that just feeds. He's basically like a humpback whale in the ocean, feeding on small, what do they call it, krillin, or whatever the little things are that whales eat by the ton every day. All right. Now, so Ralph Ineson, his voice is menacing. He has just a little bit of effect on him, because guess what? Ralph Ineson's voice is extremely deep. It's way deeper than mine, and it just thumps. Like even when you hear him in interviews, the voice is just, you know what I mean? So I like the fact that he talks about he was small like you guys once. And then he said, a long time ago, I was just a man from another world. He said, before this eternal, relentless hunger. So I'm taking from the subtext, okay, of that scene is that he grew that large because of the eternal appetite, because he's absorbed the energy of these planets for over 1 billion years. So that's why he's so huge now. That's the subtext, okay? It didn't outright say that. That's what I'm gathering from the subtext. So then Galactus says to Reed Richards, he says, you carry with you the power to save your world. Now, Reed doesn't know where he's going with this, and he says, yes, I believe we do. He don't know, but he's just saying, he's just trying to be conversational. And then Galactus says, inside her. And they look at me like, he says, the child, he hungers. And he tells them, I will spare your world in exchange for the boy. So Galactus knows right away it's a boy. And I'm trying to remember if Reed and Stu found out the gender of the child before. But either way, Galactus is like a cosmic entity, so he just knows. Reed tells him, he said, you will never have our planet and you will never have our child. So Reed isn't just sacrificing the planet for his child. You know what I mean? This is a father talking, but it's also one of the protectors of Earth. When the Silver Surfer first arrived in Times Square, she said, are you the protectors of this world? And Sue spoke up for the group. Yes, we are. And Reed didn't shut her down or try to counteract what she said. Reed wasn't like, hey, no, we're not protectors. We're just exploring. No. They were the protectors of the world, of Earth 828. So then when they defy Galactus, Galactus stands up to his full height and he says, I'm going to devour your world slowly while the child watches. So it's just, now Galactus is menacing. You know what I mean? So then they escape Tattoo, the Silver. This is a fantastic sequence. They get in the FTL drive. Okay, they're going through a wormhole. The Silver Surfer gets in her own wormhole, and she's basically trailing them in their wormhole. Great. There's one scene where she's like reaching, because you can phase through matter. She puts her, I think she like breaches Sue's stomach while she's still not in solid form yet. And then they go to the FTL drive and they leave the Silver Surfer behind. But then the Silver, like I said, the Silver Surfer follows in her own wormhole. And I just love talking about this. I just love this scene. It's a great chase. They can't withstand the Silver Surfer. So they're going, Reed, what do we do? So he says, go close to this proton star, which is basically a black hole. Now, if you've seen Superman, we've had a black hole in Superman. We've now had a black hole in Fantastic Four. So Ben has misgivings the whole time. He says, Reed, if we get too close, we'll get sucked in. And Reed says, this is a great moment. All right. He says, trust me. And there's so much in that line. He said, Ben, trust me. Now remember, he's saying that to Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm trusted Reed when they went up into space the first time that everything would be okay before they were bombarded by cosmic rays. And look at Ben Grimm now. He's a big rock creature. And they also alluded to elsewhere in the movie where Reed was like, I wasn't smart enough to, he said, I will try to turn you back human. So there was a lot in that exchange there. And Ben Grimm says, I do trust you, even though you failed before. So great stuff. Great. Again, everything going on around it, this big sci-fi moment, there's a great human element here too. He says, yes, I still trust you after you failed. So this is a real friend. Ben Grimm is Reed Richards' best friend. It was never Victor Von Doom. Victor Von Doom was only, traditionally in comic books, Victor Von Doom was only Reed Richards' roommate. He was never his best friend. All right. That's traditionally. All right. So Ben Grimm does exactly what Reed says. He says, go to these coordinates, and basically they're orbiting this black hole. So then Sue is in contractions now because Galactus, he did something with his eye, okay? And the baby started to come. Little Franklin, she was starting to give birth. So then she started, oh! So she's in contractions, she's in labor as they escape Ta 2, which was Galactus' ship. So now she's definitely in labor. She took her top off. I mean, not everything, but she just has like an undershirt on with looked like a swimming cap on. So the whole time they're fleeing the Silver Surfer, she's on top of this console, because this is what really happens with childbirth. So we see, yes, we're out in space, we're meeting beings that can devour worlds, we're meeting a woman that's covered in silver or mercury that can travel in space on a surfboard. We're with a group of explorers who became the world's defenders because of the brilliance of Reed Richards. They were bombarded by cosmic rays. Reed Richards can stretch, his elasticity is beyond human capacity. Ben Grimm is a big rock creature. Johnny Storm can turn into a fireball. Sue Storm can become invisible and create force fields. But all this going on, we still have the human element of what happens when you're giving birth. The basic fundamental building block of humanity when a woman gives birth is played out in the middle of everything going on. This is great storytelling, in my opinion. And they're not sugarcoating it here. It's not just like she's just like firming up, like, we gotta stop the Silver Surfer. I'll give you 2 pushes and the child come out. No. It's like somebody really giving birth. So while she's doing this, and they're orbiting this proton star, and the Silver Surfer is catching up. Like, they can't stop the Silver Surfer. They have to escape the Silver Surfer. Reed says, Sue, just give me 30 seconds of invisibility. All right. He said, after your next contraction. See? After your next contraction. Nothing phony. He's not saying, hey, be a hero and just power through it while you're getting contractions. He says, no. After your next contraction. You got to look at the stuff here. You got to read between the lines. You got to see the human element, the humanity in the midst of all the sci-fi. This is excellent storytelling. So he says, after your next contraction. Okay. So she has her next contraction. Then she goes, ah. That's the next. Okay, that was a terrible rendition of a contraction. Then she makes the whole ship invisible. And this is where they lose the Silver Surfer. Because basically Excelsior, I guess dismounts, I guess would be the right word, the FTL drive while invisible. So the Silver Surfer is now focused on the FTL drive. The FTL drive crumbles and disintegrates because it's getting closer to the black hole. And while they're invisible, they slink off. And Reed's plan goes to perfection because the Silver Surfer gets caught in the gravity well of the black hole. In other words, in the gravimetric pull of the black hole, because a black hole absorbs all light and all matter. So the Silver Surfer is like stuck in the gravity well. And Reed predicted that it would take her an entire month to escape it because of the time dilation. He didn't say we were going to lose her because he knows she's too powerful. So he didn't say, yeah, once we get her in the gravity well, she's done. He says, no. He says, because of the time dilation, it'll take her an entire month to get free. So basically, Excelsior, they're losing fuel. It's a very tense scene. The ship is falling apart. Reed said, get us to, I don't know what this means, but Reed said, get us to 0.88, whatever. And this whole time she's giving birth. As soon as they're still orbiting the proton star. Sue is giving birth. Reed is like basically bracing her to the table by stretching his legs out real far. So he's creating like a fulcrum, you know what I mean? To keep her there. And he's talking her through with like a husband with a wife. Like a father would in a mother giving childbirth. This is my favorite sequence of the movie because there's humanity involved with everything going on. And little Franklin pops out. All right. And remember, they're still in danger because they run out of fuel. So Ben says we'll have to slingshot around the proton star. And hopefully that'll get us back into faster than light travel. Faster than light, not faster than light. So again, that is my favorite sequence of the movie. Once they arrive, they are the heroes that they once were, you know what I mean, when they left, like the whole world loves them. They're centered in New York City, you know what I mean? So everything they've done, they appreciate them. They give them a hero's welcome when they come back. They're in a press conference, and the reporter asks Reed, who was the leader of the Fantastic Four, how did you defeat Galactus? And Reed looks over at Ben and John. This is just great storytelling. I just love the way this movie is made. This movie is made so well. He looks over at his friends, at his brother-in-law, Johnny Storm, at his best friend, Ben Grimm, and he says, we didn't. And Ben says, I forgot what Ben said, but Johnny said, not yet. So they're optimistic. They're behind Reed. They're supporting Reed. This is a family. It's not just a superhero group. It's a family of superheroes. The family comes first. The family dynamic really works. Even earlier on in the beginning of the movie, Reed and Sue are basically finding out that Sue is pregnant. Downstairs, Johnny, Herbie, and Ben are preparing a meal. They're late, Reed and Sue, and I think I might have mixed the scenes up. But they're late for dinner. So when they come down, they said, you guys are late. And Sue starts acting weird. Not weird, but kind of strange. She's like, huh? He's like, you guys are late for dinner. That's what Johnny's not picking up on this at all. And Ben Grimm's just looking. He's like, because she's talking about being late, and both of them are acting kind of, they're not acting like they usually act. So then Ben Grimm, and he saw this in the trailer, he says, are you pregnant? And she goes, so I love this. At personal point, all right, this is my personal interjection here. When Johnny says, we're going to be the best uncles, that hit me. Now, I wasn't emotional. I wasn't watching it in the movie theater like, but it was an emotional touchstone for me because I knew somebody in my youth, I was only 11 years old, they announced, I'm pregnant. Oh, no, they said I could be pregnant. This is a personal testimony, right? They said, I might be pregnant. So remember, everybody else is like kind of somber, like, oh no, what's going to happen? And I'm 11, I'm looking at my brother, who's 16 at the time, I believe. We look at each other, we go, and they ask us, they go, what do you guys think about this? We go, we're uncles! Like, we just totally had no clue as to what was going on. So when Johnny said that, it reminded me of a personal experience that I had. So then, let's go back to the press conference, and they go, so what happened if you didn't defeat Galactus? He says, the price was too high. Reed said, Galactus said he would spare our world if I gave them our child. And the world is like, give the child up. You know what I'm saying? In so many words. And the Fantastic Four stand resolute. They stand their ground. That's too high a price. No, we're not giving up our baby. And the whole time, Sue's walking in the back with the baby in her flight suit or whatever still. She's not even a part of the press conference. And then like when they walk away, that's when the reporter says, are we safe? And Reed was like, I don't know. Now, Reed lied, but he lied to, I guess, assuage mass panic of the planet. He said, I don't know. The truth is, they weren't safe. They weren't. But he just said, I don't know. So there's still a doubt. That's still giving Reed time to come up with a plan. And this is another great moment when the threat of Galactus is coming, the way that the Fantastic Four interacts and deals with the fickle nature of humanity. Because now they're protesting outside the Baxter building. They're saying, give up the child. They're saying that Sue is selfish. They're saying Reed is selfish. And another great moment. This was a great movie. I might change my grade now that I'm going back through it. All right. But Reed has the weight of the world on his elastic, malleable shoulders. He's doing equations. He's trying to figure out stuff. He writes the term power cosmic because Galactus said that Franklin possesses the power cosmic. So then Sue, Johnny, and Ben sit down and they go, Reed, what do we got? And Reed was like, this is a great moment, acting moment by Pedro Pascal in this movie. He goes, I have nothing. And for somebody that's that brilliant, for somebody that's revolutionized the planet, remember, it said that the other nations of the world early on in the film were talking about dismantling their armies. So that's the level of technology and the level of security that Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four has provided, that this Earth 828 was dismantling its militaries. That's how much they love this team. That's how essential they are to the infrastructure of the whole planet. Not just New York, but the entire planet. We're talking about dismantling their armies. So for Reed Richards, this brilliant scientist, to go, I have nothing. You can see the panic. You can see the desperation. But instead of just like falling out and, like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the outtakes where Will touched himself and was like he passed out in church. Reed doesn't do that. What he does, he's honest with the rest of the family, and he goes back to the board. You know what I mean? Like, this great stuff, a great character movie for Reed Richards, in my opinion. And then he says their way, he's spitballing out loud. He says their way is free, is available, is accessible. I might have messed up with one of the words. And Sue says, accessible? She said, you've actually thought about giving up the child. And Reed is like, I would never give up the child. She said, but you thought about it. He said, yeah, and another great line in a sequence by Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards. He says, I have to think of these terrible things so that I can counteract the terrible things and they don't befall us. Like, he's a pragmatist. You know what I mean? Like, he has to do this. That's how his brain works. So then he talks to Sue later on, because she leaves and goes upstairs and she's holding Franklin. And she almost levels Reed. She says, sometimes you being you hurts me. You know what I mean? You being Reed hurts me. And then she goes outside with Franklin. She addresses this crowd that's like thronging the entrance to the Future Foundation at the base of the Baxter Building. And she says, you guys know me. You know my story. You know what I mean? And she gives this heartfelt testimony. She says, we've been with you guys from the beginning. You know what I mean? And then Reed, Johnny, and Ben come out. They don't walk right up with her, because Sue is addressing the public with just her baby. So I don't want to say she made herself a sacrificial lamb, but she really has no protection being out there by herself with her child, because she's vulnerable there. Now, that's not in the movie. Nobody said that. I'm saying that. She's out there by herself. She's facing all the scrutiny of this press, of this mob, by herself. Even though she's not the one that usually addresses the press. Usually Reed Richards does that, because he's the leader of the team. So she's very vulnerable right now. And so she says, she looks back at Reed, Ben, and Johnny. They smile, so it's like, okay, we just had a family moment. That's all that was. Saying, sometimes you being you hurts me, which is honest, but it kind of hurt Reed's feelings a little bit. That's how families work. We say stuff that we really mean, but sometimes, like, it doesn't go over well to just be brutally honest all the time. You know what I mean? All right, because people have feelings. Feelings are involved. So she gives, in my opinion, the best line in the movie. She says, I will not sacrifice my child for this world. She says, but I will not sacrifice my world for this child. Great line. Great line. And then she refers to the essence of family. Now, in the trailers, we assume that Sue was addressing the Fantastic Four when she said, we will face them together. We will fight them together as a family. Another great line. But she's not talking to the Fantastic Four. She's talking to the world. She said, the world is my family. So she's letting them know right then and there, you guys are not secondhand to me. You're not an afterthought. I love you guys. Your safety is as important as the safety of my child. That's what that means. She said, I ain't gonna sacrifice this baby for y'all, but conjunction, I'm not sacrificing you guys for just my baby either. So this really ingratiates the crowd again. The world loves the Fantastic Four again. Reed enacts a plan, okay? Because I can't remember the line that Sue gave, but when they go back into the Baxter Building, Reed says, you discovered it, Sue. She's like, what? He says, Archimedes. He says, the law of levers. He writes an equation on board. And Archimedes really did say this, who was a real scientist. He said, give me a lever and a fulcrum. He said, and I can move the earth because of leverage, okay? So he says, we have the technology to do that. And they're like, what? He said, the bridge. And Johnny's like, yo, man, all you did was just teleport an egg across the room. So then Reed says that we will teleport the planet itself to a place where Galactus wouldn't find them for a few million years. Which is, again, scientific stuff. Could you really move a planet? Probably not. You know what I mean? But again, the plan is going forth. Reed issues the plan. The world unifies again in hopes of staving off the threat of Galactus and the Silver Surfer. So they build all these bridges around the world, okay, so that they can enact Reed's plan of teleporting to Earth. This movie thrives in the way it's telling a story. It's telling a concentrated story. It's not messy. It's not all over the place. Everything is happening as it should. It's hitting beats. The pacing is very well. The editing is fantastic. I understand that they cut out, I think, 20 minutes of the movie. I don't feel like anything was missing though. I don't. Like early on in the movie, we see them, Ted Gilbert, who is the Ed Sullivan equivalent of Earth 828. He talks about the history of the Fantastic Four. He recalls their origins. He talks about how they became protectors in New York City. They defeated one of the Red Ghost super apes, who I believe the Red Ghost was supposed to be originally played by John Malkovich, but all that was taken out. They show the classic Fantastic Four first cover where they're all fighting a subterranean creature. They reenact that, okay? And then afterwards, it says that Sue and the Mole Man, Harvey Elders, one of the OG Fantastic Four villains, the very first Fantastic Four villain, they negotiated. So they gave the Mole Man what he wanted. They gave him his own nation called Subterranea, which is comic book accurate, which didn't have to be accurate because it's a great movie, all right? The time comes when Reed wants to activate the bridge because Galactus and the Silver Surfer have just passed Mars, I believe. It was either Mars or Jupiter, all right? So we see them engaging them, you know, all the bridges, and then they just start going out. They just start exploding, they start going offline, and we see the Silver Surfer destroying all the bridges. Okay, so before she gets to the one in New York City, Johnny and the rest of the Fantastic Four intercept her, and then Johnny plays all the messages that he'd been receiving because he'd been putting them on records. Well, again, that gives you the old feel, like the actual vinyl records of the Silver Surfer's transmissions. And then this is Johnny's big moment right here. It's not an action moment, it's not a supernova moment, but it's a great moment because he's basically letting the Silver Surfer know, we're just protecting our world the way you protected yours. And he said, all these other worlds were crying out, asking you to spare them, which you did not, okay? Because Galactus came there at her behest, because remember earlier Sue said, wait, you pick the worlds that Galactus devours. And she kind of reluctantly said, I choose them. Again, you know what I mean? It's almost reluctance in obedience to Galactus. So Johnny says, he says, your world was trying to give you that blessing of, you know, die with yours in her alien language of Zenla. He said, but what about all the other worlds, the 23 worlds that you destroyed? Because they tracked her energy signature to all these other planets that have been destroyed. So the Silver Surfer has a crisis of conscience, and she abandons the last bridge, because that was the last bridge, the one that's in Times Square. Now that would have left the Fantastic Four on the planet Earth with no prayer of defeating Galactus. So she left the bridge and she departed, the Silver Surfer. So then Reed comes to the epiphany, and so does Sue. He says, we gotta get Galactus out of his ship so that we can use the last bridge to teleport Galactus to the other side of the universe. And without a ship, he'll be stranded for God knows how long. It won't kill Galactus. They said, but he'll be stranded because the ship will be near Earth and he'll be on the other side of the universe. Okay. And so he says, and Reed says, we just have to get Galactus away from his ship. And then Sue realizes what Reed was saying without actually saying it. She says, we need to use Franklin. That's the only thing he wants. And Reed reluctantly looks at her and says, yes. And Ben and Johnny are like,
I hate that.
That's a bad plan. That's a stupid plan.
That's a stupid plan. Like, you're gonna sacrifice the baby? No. So then Reed says, we have to use Franklin. And Sue goes, I know. And she stands up, she goes, I know. Then she screams the last one, I know, and disappears. So that was a hint of Malice, her dark alter ego, which a lot of people thought she was gonna really demonstrate in this movie, but she really doesn't. It was just that, I know, and the way she vanished, that was kind of the only hint of Malice. You know what I mean? Because her voice got a little like ferocious as well. It's almost a growl. I know. So once again, Reed and Sue have one final moment in Times Square beneath the bridge where they're trying to bring Galactus. They let them know the plan. The very next day, Galactus arrives. All right. And then we see Galactus sort of in full form. It was both practical effects and CGI. The actor Ralph Ineson really had a Galactus suit. They kind of blended them together, practical effects and the CGI effects. We see that Galactus is basically unstoppable. They try to pull a old switcheroo. So basically Johnny Storm kind of, I want to say distracts Galactus using his flame. All right, like right in his eyes and in his face or whatever, which they know wouldn't stop Galactus. It would just sort of take his mind off of Franklin, who's in this, I think Reed said it was a bomb-proof and a radiation-proof, like, what do you call those little things? Like a baby carrier, okay? So while Galactus is distracted, Johnny flies in, gets the real Franklin out, and Reed replaces it with an empty little baby carrier. I forgot the name of it, all right? So it's right beneath the last bridge that Reed is going to use to teleport Galactus to the other side of the galaxy. So Galactus is about to set foot into that perimeter, and he pauses. And Reed's right at the controls. He's trying to get Galactus right in the center. But when Galactus stops, you know, Reed is like, oh God, like I need him to step in here. But Galactus stops. And then he scans New York City, and then he sees that Franklin is back in the Baxter building. And the music starts hitting. It's like, dan, dan, dan. And Galactus says, clever little bugs. You know what I mean? For their little plan. So now Galactus is going to the Baxter building. He snatches Franklin out, okay, of the Baxter building. And then he levitates Franklin in front of him. And Galactus is still letting you know that this is a destiny that he does not want anymore. So he's looking right at Franklin. Little baby Franklin is like hovering above his hand, the palm of his massive hand. And he says, you are my salvation. Talking about Franklin. And he says, time to feed. So he says, Franklin will inherit this appetite that he has for destroying worlds, okay? So then the Fantastic Four, they managed to, I don't really remember beat by beat for what happens, but it doesn't matter because Fantastic Four weren't going to lose. You know what I mean? A lot of people thought that they were going to lose because of the end credit scene of Thunderbolts, where they showed Excelsior. So a lot of people assumed that Galactus was going to destroy this world, and the Fantastic Four were going to flee to Earth 616. But that's not what happens in this movie. Basically, Sue Storm uses all the power that she can summon, you know, with creating force fields, and it's almost a form of telekinesis as well. And she pushes Galactus back to the bridge. Okay, now a lot of people might be rolling their eyes and sucking their teeth that she did this to Galactus, but I like this, okay, because Matt Shakman, who's the director and the screenplay writers, who I alluded to earlier, they don't treat her like a run-of-the-mill comic book character with identifiable quantities. You know what I mean? Like, oh, her superpowers, this is the extent of her superpower. No, it's a superpower. So it doesn't have a measurement that we know of. So the fact that she was able to use all this energy, it really treated it like she was an anomaly. And to me, that's how all superheroes should be treated. Like that, it's an anomaly that we can't, it's a quantifiable factor that we can't really measure the extent of her power, okay? Now, I mean, in a one-on-one battle, Galactus mops the floor with Sue. It wouldn't even be a battle. But I like the fact that it's just a moment of heart, it's a moment of will. It's more of her will forcing Galactus back to the bridge. And again, a lot of people won't like that. I thought it was cool, okay? Now the comic book person in me is like, okay, no, he's a god, she can't do this. But the moviegoer, the audience member that I said, I see what they're doing and I understand. And I'm not mad at it, all right? So she basically uses up all her life force, all her will to save Franklin and the world. Remember, she wasn't just going to sacrifice Franklin for the world, neither was she going to sacrifice the world for Franklin. So she's saving both right now. She shoves Galactus into the bridge. Reed engages the bridge. Galactus is teleported out. But Galactus returns. Okay, so his plan worked, yet it kind of didn't work because Galactus returned. He's fighting his way through the portal, and then the Silver Surfer, Shalabal, comes out of nowhere. She hits Galactus with some kind of like cosmic energy blast, and Galactus goes through the portal, and the portal shuts down, and the world is saved. So that's the end of Galactus and the Silver Surfer. They're somewhere on the other side of the universe. All right. So Sue dies. The exertion of forcing Galactus back kills her. All right. So Reed is administering CPR. Pedro Pascal, once again, doing fantastic acting. Okay. Remember, he's a scientist. He doesn't really display his emotions. He's kind of a dispassionate character. But here, he's like, Sue, come on, baby. Come on. You know what I mean? I like the way that he was doing that also when he was helping her birth Franklin as well. So then, now I kind of knew what was going to happen here. I guess it was a little predictable. But they basically placed Franklin on the corpse of his mother. I know that sounded kind of grim. Placed the baby on the corpse of his mother. But she's dead here, okay? Franklin uses the power cosmic to bring Sue back to life, which is a small measure of his power. Franklin Richards is an OP mutant. He was born with these abilities. So he's a mutant, all right? And everybody knows it. Franklin Richards, adult Franklin Richards, is in the old 80s run of Chris Claremont and John Burns' Days of Future Past. He's a powerful mutant, all right? So little baby Franklin brings Sue back to life. They save the day. The world is once again in the debt of the Fantastic Four. This movie was so well done. I love the characters. I love Ben. I love Johnny. Did Ben Grimm have it's clobbering time moment? No, even though he said it. But we see that Ben Grimm is still wrestling with the depression of being a rock creature. You might say, you didn't really see that. You saw it, but you weren't really paying attention if you didn't see it. Because he was walking past one of the TV shops. Back in the day, they used to have all the TVs in a window and playing at the same time. So he sees what he used to look like, and then the picture goes, and then you just see his rock face. There's no dialogue there, but you can see right then and there, it's still an issue. It's called subtext. Without you being told expressly what's going on with the character, you know because of the subtext. And then he sees this young woman named Rachel with all these kids. And, he does the feat of strength where he lifts the car up. And the kids are like, yay, throw the car. So he acts like he's going to throw it at them, whatever. And he's just being Ben Grimm, the person. But he's still standoffish to talking to this girl, Rachel. Why? They don't say it. But what is it? Because he's a rock creature. That's why. He's a rock. He's aware of this. He's self-aware that he's a rocky monstrosity, okay? So the depression is still there. And when Reed brought up the fact that he couldn't bring him back to human, Ben Grimm tries to dismiss it. Pardon me. He tries to dismiss it and goes, you ain't really that smart after all. You know what I mean? It wasn't a shot, but it was kind of like a nudge. Like you're not that smart. You know what I mean? He's like, you can't paint. He said, you're not an artist. So he says, you're brilliant, but you can't do everything. So he's kind of telling Reed it's okay, but we know it's not really okay. That's called subtext. That's the word of the video. Subtext. Look it up. All right. But anyway, Johnny was good. We see that Johnny was always adored by the ladies. Like early on when they show footage of them first going into space, Sue says, and he's available. He's single, ladies. In the comic books, Johnny Storm, not Silver Surfer. Johnny Storm was always enamored with the exotic alien foes that the Fantastic Four faced. We're talking about Crystal from the Inhumans. What was her name? Was it Zaj, the Skrull princess? He actually married her, even though she was in disguise. But Johnny has always been attracted to exotic women, okay? So the fact that he didn't have 1,000 girlfriends and was just smashing chicks, I hope that's not too much of an extreme term for this channel, okay? Because this is a family channel, okay? But it's really Johnny Storm. We see a different side of Johnny in this movie. He's the one that deciphers the Silver Surfer's, her little prayer, and he's the one that did all the research on all the other transmissions that were produced based on the planets the Silver Surfer visited. So we get a little more from Johnny, all right? Sue, of course, is the heart and soul of the movie. Reed is also a part of that. But the Reed-Sue-Franklin dynamic is the core of the movie. As I said, this movie does not work without the family dynamic. And I want to thank this. I'm acting like I got a dividend from the movie or royalty. But I'm very grateful to the screenwriters, director Matt Shakman. There was doubts about Matt Shakman because he'd only directed WandaVision before. Matt Shakman knocked this out the park. He knocked this movie out the park. The pacing is great. The characters are great. Listen to this, folks. It's a self-contained movie in the MCU. There is no tie in the movie to to this Earth 828 and Earth 616, which is the current continuity of the MCU. Now, we do know that eventually they're going to go to 616. But this world, it feels organic. It feels real. Like somebody said this earlier, not in the video, but somebody that I know. They said, I don't want them to go to Earth 616. I want them to stay here in his own world. Like, I honestly agree with that. Like, I would love to see the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in this world. I would love to see like more traditional MCU characters that are different from their 616 counterparts. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, they really could reboot the MCU with the tone of this movie. And see, this is where I compare this to Superman. Because Superman should have had a tone like this movie has. This was its own universe within the MCU. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie. It's more of a sci-fi thriller. It's more Close Encounters than like Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, and I'm not besmirching Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a part of the MCU. But I like this corner. I like the diversity of storytelling here. Because now, whatever the next MCU movie is, Fantastic Four First Steps kind of raises the bar as far as the pacing of the movie, as far as the realness of it, the organic chemistry between the characters, the fact that it's a self-contained story. Again, everybody assumed that this world was going to be destroyed by Galactus, but it wasn't. So I would really like to see Earth 828 continue, but we know what's going to happen. All right, but in an end credit scene, we see that I think it's maybe 4 years later. Franklin is a little older. You can actually see his blonde hair now. Sue leaves Franklin, I think, in the family room. She comes back. Franklin is holding a metal mask in his hand and touching somebody's face with a green hood and a green cloak. Obviously, that's Dr. Doom. And we know that Dr. Doom is being played by Robert Downey Jr. in Doomsday. All right. And there was a nod to Dr. Doom earlier in the movie where it showed like all the nations of, I guess, the 828 equivalent of the United Nations. You see all the representatives of these countries. Then you see the nameplate Latveria, and 2 seats are absent. So that was a nod to Dr. Doom as well. And that's all I needed to let you know that Dr. Doom is in this continuity. All right. And the end credit scenes are kind of, there's no need to stick around for those. All right. But I love this movie. The characters were great. The pacing was great. The sci-fi element was fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. The music was so on point in this movie. Galactus and the Silver Surfer presented a real threat. I totally forgot about Norrin Red in this movie. I did, because I was focused on the threat of Shalabal's the Silver Surfer. But what did you think of this movie? Again, if you want to go into explicit details the way I've done in the comment section, feel free to do it. Leave a dissertation there if necessary. Be as wordy as you need to be. And I'll say this, David Brent and Chris Finch, please let them know where those comments or dissertations go, sirs. Thank you, Mr. Brent, Wernham Hogg's Finest, The Office UK, as well as Ralph Ineson, Chris Finch, Wernham Hogg's Finest, The Office UK. Do your part. I'm going to continue to do my part. Oh, wait, let me stop. I jumped the gun. I didn't give a grade. I originally gave this movie a B+, but talking it out, reliving it, basically rehearsing it, this movie gets an A. An A for absolutely fantastic, stunning, and a surprise to me. Because I didn't think the movie was going to be this good. The fact that it's a self-contained story. Again, the MCU has always been bogged down with tie-ins. But this is its own animal. It's a different animal under the umbrella of the MCU. Fantastic Four First Steps gets an A. It's one of my favorite MCU movies already. So A from originally where I had a B+. A. Do your part, I'll do my part. To The Great Expanse by John Bat 426 can and will expand. It's in the name.